You're not leadership material, Madison. You're stable, but uninspiring. She said it flatly, like she was commenting on the weather. And somehow, that hurt more. I was sitting across from her in the glass-walled conference room where you could see the whole floor, the interns shuffling binders, the partners strolling past like they owned the air we breathed. Dana didn't even close the blinds. She didn't have to. She wanted them to see. This was my annual review. I had brought a leather portfolio with an embossed plan titled Lead Frame 2025, which I'd worked on for months, the kind of initiative that could scale our entire department. But I never even opened it. Dana talked right over it. Reliable is fine, she went on, twirling a pen between her fingers. But you don't have presence, Maddie. People follow vision, not consistency. I remember nodding, not because I agreed, but because my throat had closed, and nodding was the only thing I could do that didn't show the burn behind my eyes. She tapped her pen once more. Oh, and just so you're not caught off guard, we've reassigned your projects. Ellie will be leading the pitch in Atlanta next week. I blinked. Ellie, the shiny new hire who still used Comic Sans in her slide decks. I opened my mouth, but the words tangled, so I closed it again, tight. Outside the glass wall, Jacob glanced in. He looked like he wanted to say something. Maybe he thought better of it. Dana stood up and smoothed her blouse. Don't worry, you're still invaluable, just in a supportive role. Supportive. My hands were still resting calmly on the portfolio. But inside, something was unhooking. It wasn't rage. It was colder than that. It was clarity. I walked out of that glass box with my steps measured, my face blank, like I hadn't just been erased from the future I helped build. No one said a word. I passed the open lounge, where Ellie was laughing over coffee, surrounded by 3 managers. One of them was flipping through my lead frame binder. She had a highlighter in her hand and no idea how to use it. The hallway buzzed with fluorescent lights and shallow conversations. It was a Friday, but my body felt like it was being folded into a box and sealed shut. At my desk, the system login had already changed. My admin access, gone. The project folders I'd named 2 years ago now had Ellie.main tags on them. I stared at the screen for a long time. My fingers hovered over the keyboard like they forgot what they were trained to do. Then something shifted. I didn't cry. I didn't type. I unplugged the monitor. Carefully. Then I slid open the bottom drawer, the one I kept locked, not out of secrecy, but habit. Inside was a hardbound journal with tabbed sections, color-coded by timeline and phase. Original concept, stakeholder feedback, workflow optimization, financial impact projections. Everything that made lead frame real, not just a buzzword. All in my own handwriting. I closed the drawer and locked it again. From the other side of the office, Sabrina, the intern who'd quietly watched from behind her oversized monitor, caught my eye. She didn't say anything. Just tilted her head slightly, like she was waiting for me to say something first. But I didn't. I just nodded once, and packed my bag with the portfolio still closed. Before I walked out, I took one last glance at Dana's glass room. She was smiling, but not at me. And in that moment, I realized she had no idea what I was about to do next. There was a time when Dana would forward every big email with just one line, "Run it by Maddie first." She used to call me her second spine. Said it during a team lunch once, raised her wine glass, looked me dead in the eye. She keeps this place upright. And honestly, for a while, I believed her. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't the kind of person who talked for attention. I listened, I structured, I built things that held weight. While others chased recognition, I chased results. When Dana got promoted to VP of Strategy, she took me with her. It was just the 2 of us in the beginning. Late nights in conference rooms that smelled like burnt coffee and recycled air, building frameworks from scratch. We built the pilot team, the internal system for cross-departmental planning. I even designed the onboarding sequence that every new hire now had to complete. She'd say, "Make it bulletproof," and I would. I caught errors no one else saw. I kept teams from missing deadlines by 4 hours instead of 4 days. I wasn't trying to be seen, I was trying to be useful. That's probably why I didn't see it coming. The shift. It was subtle at first. A meeting where my name was left off the calendar. An oversight, she said. An initiative I proposed, suddenly rebranded under her name. Just cleaned up the wording. Then there was the lead frame proposal. I had started shaping the bones of it on a long flight back from Chicago, scribbling on napkins and receipts. Dana called it game-changing, but when she pitched it to the executive team, it was just her in the room. When I asked why I wasn't invited, she said, "You're the kind of thinker who makes things work, but I need to be the one to make them listen." Something cracked in me that day. Quietly. No sound. Just a shift. Like the way ice thins under your feet. No splash, no warning. Just a silence that says, careful. And I became careful. I stopped sharing first drafts. I made copies of everything. Notes, audio memos, internal timestamps. I told myself it was just backup. But really, it was insurance, because even then I knew. People like me don't get erased all at once. They get faded out slowly. Ellie showed up on a Monday. Her heels clicked. Her smile was rehearsed. And Dana introduced her like she was the missing puzzle piece we didn't know we needed. "She's going to shadow some of the senior folks," Dana said. "Madison, can she sit in on your client ops calls for the next few weeks?" I nodded. Of course I did. Ellie was polite, eager. Said thank you every time I explained something, even when I was repeating myself. She took notes, real ones, the kind you highlight and revisit. At first I thought she was just green. Then I realized she was also ambitious, smart enough to ask the right questions, smart enough to ask them in front of Dana. There was one afternoon, a Thursday, when I watched Dana lean forward mid-meeting, resting her chin in her palm while Ellie talked. I'd seen that posture before. It meant Dana had picked her next favorite. Still, I played my part. Helped Ellie draft her first client handoff report. Reviewed her analysis on Q2 attrition. Cleaned up her bullet points before she presented them, and stayed quiet while Dana clapped. "She's a natural," Dana whispered to me one day in the hallway. "You're really bringing her up right." I wanted to believe that was a compliment, but it wasn't. Then things moved faster. Ellie started sitting at Dana's table during Friday briefings. I wasn't told. I found out when my usual seat was taken. One day, she used a phrase I coined months earlier in a pitch. Directional friction. She delivered it with a smirk like she'd invented it. Dana nodded like it was the first time she'd heard it. Then came the email. Or rather, the email I never got. It was an internal planning memo. Ellie was named as the new liaison for our integration partners. My name wasn't mentioned. Not once. Even though I'd held that role for 2 years. I walked into Dana's office that afternoon, file in hand, calm on the outside. "Just wanted to clarify. Has there been a shift in ownership on the integration piece?" She looked up, blinked once, then smiled faintly. "Oh, didn't I loop you in? I figured you had too much on your plate." That was her new line. Too much on your plate. It sounded like concern, but it felt like being shut out of your own house. I went back to my desk, opened my drawer, pulled out the notebook I'd kept for a year, the one Dana didn't know about. Every idea, every framework, dates, contributors, versions. I flipped to a tab in the middle, lead frame, draft logic, original. The diagrams were in my handwriting. I'd even doodled a coffee ring in the corner, with a note that read, "Build around trust first, then tech." That was the one thing Dana never really understood. You can fake a pitch, but you can't fake the people who believe in you. I closed the notebook gently, slipped it into my bag, and for the first time in months, I exhaled. It happened on a Tuesday. The kind of Tuesday where you think you know what's coming, until you don't. I walked into the monthly all-teams roundtable holding 2 things, a folder of my Q3 analysis and the last shred of hope that maybe, just maybe, Dana would see me again. The room was full, too full, more than usual. Marketing, sales, finance, even the CEO had made time. Dana stood up front in her usual cream blazer, her arms outstretched like she was hosting a TED Talk. Behind her, a slide read, "The Ellie Initiative, Forward Momentum." I froze. Ellie was already seated beside her, smile tight, legs crossed. Her name was printed on a place card. Mine wasn't. Dana clapped her hands once. "Today, we celebrate a rising star, the new lead for our growth integration strategy. Her data-driven thinking has transformed the way we execute." Ellie stood. People clapped. Some hesitated, looked around before joining in. I didn't move. Because the deck on that screen, the one she was flipping through, I built it. Not just the framework, the data tables, the predictive churn model, the entire projection curve. My file name was still in the bottom corner of the screenshots. She hadn't even changed the file name. When Ellie started speaking, her voice was high and rehearsed. She thanked Dana. She thanked the incredible mentors who supported her journey. She didn't thank me. I felt my stomach twist in a slow, nauseating spiral, like a slow-motion gut punch in front of the very people I used to lead. Across the room, someone whispered, "I thought Madison owned that project." Another said, "Guess she handed it off?" No one corrected them. When it was over, people filtered out, sipping leftover coffee and avoiding my eye. Ellie took photos with Dana, one hand on her hip like she'd just landed a promotion on a game show. I stood near the back wall, folder still in hand. I hadn't spoken. I hadn't flinched, but inside something broke so cleanly, I almost heard it. And the worst part, I didn't even feel angry yet. Just empty. Like someone had pulled the floor out from under me and I was still trying to decide if I should fall. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan, feeling like every rotation was counting down to the moment I would walk in and resign. Just slide my badge across Dana's desk, nod once, and disappear like I never mattered in the first place. I even typed the email, saved it as a draft, 3 lines, no drama. But I couldn't send it. I sat in the break room the next morning, early, alone, stirring a coffee I wasn't drinking, reading a memo I wasn't absorbing. And then I heard a voice. "Madison?" It was Jordan, one of the new analysts from Ops. Young, sharp-eyed, the kind who never said more than he had to. He looked nervous, held a tablet like it was about to explode. I wasn't sure if I should show you this, but I figured if it were me." He handed it over. It was a screen recording. A screen recording from 2 weeks ago. Ellie on a call with the third-party vendor I'd sourced, pitching the integration model I'd spent a month building. Only, she called it hers. The call was recorded by accident. Jordan had been debugging the software log and stumbled on it, and instead of deleting it, he saved it. Quietly, I blinked. My hand tightened around the edge of the tablet. My breath hitched, not in rage, but in realization. I hadn't lost my mind. I hadn't imagined it all. I looked up at him. He was fidgeting, shifting weight between his sneakers like he wanted to vanish. "Thank you," I said, voice low but steady. He nodded. "She said you'd already moved off it." I didn't believe her. Then he left. And I just sat there, heart loud in my chest, fingers cold. Not from fear. From clarity. I walked back to my desk, opened my drawer, took out my notebook, the one with everything. And next to it, the manila envelope. Inside was something no one else knew I had. Not Dana. Not Ellie. A signed NDA. Time-stamped project logs. Screenshots. The original research outlines with my handwriting and signature. And now, Jordan's recording. I slid the envelope into my bag, shut the drawer, straightened my blazer. I didn't say a word. Didn't call a meeting. Didn't raise my voice. But as I walked past Dana's glass office, she looked up. I smiled. Not a warm smile. Not a fake one. Just a calm, quiet thing. Because for the first time, I wasn't chasing recognition. I was walking towards something I had built with my own hands. And this time, no one was taking it from me. It was the annual strategy summit, an over-glorified title for what was, essentially, a high-budget internal PR event. The venue was pristine. Modern chandeliers hung from exposed beams, filtered sunlight scattered through floor-to-ceiling glass panels, and the company logo was backlit in soft gold behind the stage. Every department head had their own reserved table. People had dressed up. Laughter was soft, polite. Cameras rolled silently in the background. On stage, Dana stood tall in a tailored cream suit, the spotlight hugging her like an old friend. She was mid-speech. "And that's why collaboration is the soul of innovation," she said, smiling like she believed it. In the past quarter alone, our department drove a 17% uptick in conversion, thanks of course to the vision behind the new metrics map launch. Applause rose. Too loud. Too immediate. I didn't clap, because that wasn't her vision. It was mine. I'd built metrics map in my kitchen, 2 months after leaving. I coded the first prototype at 2 a.m., with a half-eaten bagel beside me and an unopened notice from my landlord on the counter. I had pitched it to her months earlier, back when I was still under her wing. Back when she told me straight-faced, "Your ideas are cute, but not scalable." And now here she was, selling it as her legacy. But I didn't stand up. I didn't shout. I didn't storm the stage, or wave-proof like a protester. Instead, I leaned back in my chair, glanced at my team, seated silently at table 7. They knew the cue. From the left of the ballroom, near the media booth, someone cleared their throat, softly, deliberately. It was Marcus. He had once been Dana's assistant. Now, he worked for me. "Excuse me," he said, his voice amplified just enough to draw attention. "Before we move on, there's a quick clarification from legal regarding Metrics Map's trademark filing." Dana's smile twitched. "I'm sorry, this really isn't the time." "I believe it is," Marcus interrupted, holding up a single printed page. "It's relevant. Especially since this software is being publicly attributed to leadership that doesn't legally own it." A few heads turned. My fingers were still wrapped around my glass. I hadn't moved. Dana gave a nervous laugh. "This is clearly a misunderstanding." Then I stood, and it was quiet, a deep, breath-holding kind of quiet. "I can help clarify," I said, stepping forward slowly, each footstep loud against the polished floor. "I brought something, just in case the credit conversation got confused." From my tote, I pulled out a folder, slim, unmarked. I handed it to the event moderator. Inside, the patent filing, time-stamped GitHub logs, email chains, the contract Dana had once signed, rejecting the Metrics Map proposal, and then the NDA she violated 2 months later when she sent it to R&D under a different title. The silence was pure oxygen. Even the cameras paused, lenses frozen mid-tilt. The moderator glanced at Dana, then at me, then at the folder, and then read aloud. "Original development files submitted March 3rd, codebase initialized under the name Metrics Map, authored by." The moderator's voice faltered. He looked up. "Authored by Rachel Lane." There it was, a shift as audible as it was visible. Chairs creaked, a fork clinked against glass, and somewhere in the back of the room, someone murmured a stunned, "Wait, what?" Dana didn't move. But her eyes were darting, left, right, toward the event coordinator, toward the CTO sitting near the edge of the stage. For the first time that day, she didn't look polished. She looked exposed. I think there's been a serious mistake," she said, stepping forward. "Rachel is mistaken. Those are fabricated. I've never even seen that document." "No," I said quietly, but firmly. "You have seen it. You signed the NDA, Dana. You wrote your rejection in bold red Sharpie." I turned slightly, not to Dana but to the audience. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "You told me I wasn't leadership material, that I didn't have the presence for it, so I left. And I built something you dismissed, not because it lacked value, but because I didn't match your idea of who gets to lead." A few people looked down at their hands. Others didn't. One woman, HR rep from another department, raised her hand, tentatively, and spoke. "I remember when she brought this up in a joint meeting last year. Dana told us the concept was still in ideation. She never mentioned Rachel." Dana turned on her. "That's not true. We were vetting multiple options. But no one was listening, not anymore, because the moderator had turned the page. There's a signature trail," he said, more to himself than the room. "Internal emails CC'd to legal, records of software access before someone changed the admin logins without protocol." Marcus held up his phone. "We have that backup too, timestamped." Dana's jaw clenched. "You hacked into internal systems?" "No," I said simply. "I backed up my own work before I left. Legally. Because I knew this day would come." There was no shouting, no outbursts, just the soft collapse of confidence, in the room and in Dana. The CTO stood slowly and walked to the moderator. They whispered for a moment, then he picked up the mic. "We'll take a recess," he said. "Effective immediately. We need to review this thoroughly." And then he looked straight at me, not past me, not through me, at me. "Rachel," he said, "please don't leave just yet." Dana was still on stage when people started standing, but they weren't standing for her. They stood for me. My team joined me in silence. Marcus held out his arm like a quiet shield. And as we walked out of the ballroom, past tables where eyes refused to meet mine before, I saw them look up. Every single one. Some out of guilt, some out of curiosity, but a few out of respect. Dana remained frozen under the spotlight, still dressed like a leader, but no longer treated like one. The hallway outside was cool. I exhaled. I didn't smile. Not yet. But I could feel it rising, that slow, steady warmth of dignity returning home. They thought I was done. They were wrong. I didn't stay to watch Dana leave the room, but I felt it. The hush, the ripples of disbelief, the quiet fall of her reputation cracking like thin ice beneath her heels. And when the glass doors finally clicked shut behind her, you could almost hear the weight of every false compliment, every stolen credit, shatter along with them. I stood still, not triumphant, not angry, just grounded, as if the ground had finally stopped shifting beneath me. I don't remember who clapped first. It wasn't loud, it wasn't celebratory, just a slow, uncertain rhythm. Then another joined in, then another. And before I could process what was happening, people were standing. People who'd avoided eye contact with me for over a year. People who had nodded along every time Dana called me support staff material. Now they were looking at me like they were seeing something or someone they hadn't before. Like I had finally stepped out from behind the curtain, they helped her pull across my name. Later that afternoon, Mr. Cartwright, our regional director, called me into his office. He didn't sit. He paced, palms open, breathing heavy. "She blindsided us," he muttered. "You should have brought this up earlier." I looked him square in the eye. "Would you have listened?" He didn't answer, just gave a small, almost ashamed smile and nodded. Then, to my shock, he said, "We're reviewing her contracts, and yours. I'd like to make this right." I didn't say yes. Not immediately. Because sometimes justice isn't about going back. It's about choosing what comes next. That evening, I walked into our small co-working space, the one we leased with just enough money pooled from our side gigs and one person's credit line, and I found my team already there. They had champagne. Not expensive, just something fizzy from Trader Joe's. Someone had picked up tacos. The lights were dimmed, our project boards still taped to the wall, and in the center of the room, my chair, with a ribbon on it. Jake, our developer, grinned sheepishly. "It's not much, but it's your seat now." I didn't cry, I should have, but it was bigger than tears. It was reclaiming space. It was knowing that for the first time in my career, I wasn't waiting for someone to let me in. We were already building the door. The following Monday, the company released a quiet statement. Leadership transition effective immediately. Dana Brooks will be pursuing other opportunities. No one believed the pursuing part. Word spread fast. Clients began asking questions. Some even reached out directly to me. Not out of curiosity, but concern. "Did you know she presented your work to the board last quarter?" one of them asked. "We were surprised not to see you in that meeting," another admitted. I didn't respond to gossip. I didn't need to. Because what mattered most wasn't the headlines. It was what happened quietly, beneath them. One by one, people who had once stayed silent began to step forward. Melissa, who had been Dana's executive assistant for 2 years, messaged me privately. "I still have access to some of the shared folders," she wrote. "Let me know if you need help sorting through what's yours." Jake forwarded an email trail, time-stamped, backed up, and clear as day, showing my original proposal edited only slightly before being sent to corporate under Dana's name. None of them asked for credit. They just wanted the truth to sit where it belonged. Meanwhile, I got a call from Cartwright again. "We'd still like to bring you back," he said. "This time in the capacity you deserve." I told him I appreciated the offer. But I already had a team. And we were doing just fine. By Q2, the pilot program our team launched, the very one Dana said was too ambitious for someone with a coordination background, had already surpassed the projections her division had failed to meet for the past 2 years. The board noticed. We were invited to present our results at the annual summit. This time there was no one standing in front of me. I stood behind the podium, my notes in hand, not shaking, not swallowed, but clear, steady, and deliberate. When I finished, the room didn't erupt. It didn't need to. There was just a silence, a powerful, charged silence. And then, respect. That quiet, unmistakable shift in the way people look at you. Not because they pity you, but because they finally see you. The person you were, the one they tried to erase, standing taller, brighter, unshaken. After the presentation, someone I didn't expect walked up to me, Dana's former mentor. She'd once called me decorative to the strategy team. Now she extended her hand. "You led with class." "That's rare." I nodded. "It's learned." At the end of that week, I returned to the old office building to pick up a few files we never transferred. I passed by the glass-walled corner where Dana once sat. It was empty now. But I didn't stop. I walked to the elevator, pressed the button, and glanced at the reflection staring back at me from the mirrored doors. She looked like someone I hadn't seen in a long time. Someone whole. And as the doors opened, I stepped inside without a second thought. Some mornings now, I walk into my quiet little office, sunlight streaking through the blinds, and I catch myself smiling for no particular reason. It's not the kind of smile that comes from winning. It's the kind that comes from surviving. There's a framed photo of my team on my desk, our team. The one I built from nothing. They're laughing, holding coffee cups, someone mid-eye roll, someone else caught sneezing. It's imperfect. It's real. And it's mine. I remember the first time I sat alone in this space after everything unfolded. The silence was almost unsettling. No backhanded compliments. No fake clapping in meetings. Just me, my breath, and the beginning of something I hadn't dared to imagine in years. Peace. It didn't come all at once. There were days I missed the routine, even the tension. I would catch myself thinking about the old office, about the meetings I used to lead without credit, the victories that never had my name on them. But those thoughts didn't linger like they used to. They visited, said their piece, and left. Then, one afternoon, I got a message from someone I hadn't spoken to in months. Amy. She'd been one of those faces that used to nod in meetings, silent, polite. She wrote, "You always handled things with so much grace. I don't know how you did it. Thank you for showing us we didn't have to stay quiet." I sat with that for a long time, because the truth is, I wasn't graceful. I was furious, heartbroken. I had cried into Tupperware leftovers at 10 p.m. and screamed into the steering wheel of my old Honda when no one was around. But maybe grace isn't what you feel. Maybe it's what you choose despite how you feel. One evening, I was mentoring a new intern named Zoe. Bright-eyed, ridiculously smart, just a little unsure of herself. She was struggling with a presentation and confessed, "I'm worried I'm not leadership material." I looked at her and laughed. Gently, not at her, but at the bitter irony of those words. "You don't have to be leadership material," I told her. "You just have to lead. The rest will follow." She blinked, then nodded, and I realized that was the thing I'd needed to hear all those years ago. Sometimes the message you needed is the one you end up giving. There's a quiet kind of healing that happens when no one's watching. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need applause. It looks like sipping coffee without checking your inbox. It sounds like someone saying you look well, and you knowing they mean it. And every now and then I run into people from the old company. Some avoid my eyes, some smile too wide. A few, just a few, look genuinely relieved to see me doing okay. But none of that matters anymore. Because I no longer need their recognition to feel valid. I stopped needing it the day I walked away with my spine straight and my name intact. Now I lead a team that values each other. We've even outperformed the very department that said I wasn't leadership material. But I never throw that in their face. I don't have to. They already know. What matters more is what I tell every single new hire who steps into our circle. You're not here to prove you belong. You're here because you do. It's amazing how much people blossom when they're not scared of being cut down. Last week, Zoe, who once doubted herself, presented in front of a major client. She didn't stutter. She didn't fidget. She crushed it. And after the meeting, as we rode the elevator down, she turned to me and said, "I think I get it now. Leadership isn't about being the loudest voice. It's about being the one who listens when no one else does." I didn't say anything for a moment, just let the words sit between us. Then I nodded. Exactly. And if you're still listening, still here after all this, if you've ever been overlooked, silenced, or told you weren't enough, this story was for you. You don't have to wait for someone to validate your worth. You don't have to play small so others can feel big. You don't have to carry their doubts like a weight on your back. You're not what they called you. You're what you chose to become next. And you're still here. That matters more than you know. If you've been through something like this, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. And if you know someone who needs this message today, share it with them. Stick around by subscribing. We tell stories that speak for those who've been quiet too long.